The Japanese commander stared in disbelief as the American Fletcher-class destroyer unleashed hell from over 10 miles away. Their vaunted Imperial Navy ships, once the terror of the Pacific, were being struck with devastating precision by guns that could switch from surface targets to aircraft in seconds flat. While Japan's proud Type 89 naval guns stood silent against the American planes overhead, the Americans' 5-inch, 38 dual-purpose guns continued to rain fire from sea to sky, a technological advantage that would help turn the tide of the Pacific War. When Imperial Japanese Navy Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto toured the Kure Naval Arsenal in late 1940, he paused in front of the gleaming Type 89 127mm naval gun. The weapon represented the pinnacle of Japanese naval engineering, a high-velocity, flat-trajectory gun designed specifically for ship-to-ship combat. With its impressive range and muzzle velocity, it was considered among the finest surface-firing weapons in the world. "This will bring us victory against any surface fleet," the Arsenal director proudly declared. "And what about aircraft?" Yamamoto asked quietly. The director's smile faltered. "For that, Admiral, we have separate anti-aircraft mounts. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." 4,000 miles away in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, Commander William Sterling was witnessing the installation of something revolutionary on the USS Fletcher, the lead ship of America's newest destroyer class. The 5-inch, 38-caliber gun wasn't just another naval cannon, it was a paradigm shift. With its unique dual-purpose design, it could engage surface targets with deadly accuracy, then elevate to fire at aircraft within seconds. "It's not the biggest gun in our arsenal," explained Chief Gunner's mate Frank Moretti as he demonstrated the weapon's rapid 85-degree elevation change, "but it might just be the smartest." The concept had been years in development, while other navies, including Japan's, had continued developing specialized guns, powerful deck guns for surface combat, and separate lightweight weapons for anti-aircraft defense. American naval engineers had pursued a different path. They sought the holy grail of naval gunnery, a single mount that could do both jobs effectively. Many military traditionalists had scoffed at the idea. "Jack of all trades, master of none," they'd warned. The skeptics included not just Americans but also international observers. A visiting Japanese naval attaché who toured American facilities in 1938 had dismissed the concept entirely. "Americans think they can solve complex problems with simplistic solutions," he reportedly told his superiors in Tokyo. "Their dual-purpose gun is a compromise that will fail at both roles." The Japanese Imperial Navy's confidence bordered on arrogance. Their Type 89 guns were purpose-built for destroying enemy ships. They were lighter, required fewer crew, and in ship-to-ship combat, their dedicated design gave them certain advantages. The Japanese naval doctrine emphasized the decisive naval battle, the grand confrontation, where battleships would duel at maximum range, and victory would be decided by superior gunnery. What the Japanese failed to realize was that the coming war would not follow their carefully scripted scenarios. The Americans weren't designing for the last war, they were innovating for the next one. In December 1941, as Japanese planes descended on Pearl Harbor, the flaw in Japan's naval strategy became catastrophically apparent. The era of the aircraft carrier had arrived. Surface ships now faced threats not just from other vessels, but increasingly from the sky. A gun that could only fire at other ships was suddenly half a weapon. Lieutenant Commander James Harrington watched from the bridge of the USS Fletcher as the ship completed its sea trials in early 1942. The destroyer was armed with 5-inch, 38 dual-purpose gun mounts, a formidable arsenal that could engage targets on the surface and in the air without requiring separate weapons systems. "We're carrying the equivalent of 5 anti-ship batteries and 5 anti-aircraft batteries," he remarked to his executive officer. "But we're doing it with just 5 mounts and 5 crews instead of 10. It's like getting a second destroyer for free." This economy of design would prove crucial in the coming months, as American shipyards ramped up production to replace the losses at Pearl Harbor. The Fletcher-class destroyers could be built faster than their predecessors because they required fewer specialized weapons systems. The dual-purpose philosophy simplified production, training, ammunition supply, and maintenance. By mid-1942, as the first Fletcher-class destroyers began reaching the Pacific Fleet, Japanese naval officers were still largely dismissive. Their Type 89 guns had longer range for surface targets and fired heavier shells. On paper, in a purely surface engagement, the Japanese guns held the advantage. Their dual-purpose compromise will prove fatal when our guns outrange them, declared Rear Admiral Takeo Kurita at a staff meeting aboard the cruiser Otago. American technological shortcuts will be their undoing. What Kurita and many of his colleagues failed to understand was that modern naval warfare had evolved beyond the pure gunnery duels they envisioned. The dual-purpose capability wasn't a compromise, it was an adaptation to the new reality of war at sea. This reality became brutally clear during the Solomon Islands campaign. At the Battle of Cape Esperance in October 1942, the destroyer USS Duncan, armed with the 5-inch 38 dual-purpose guns, engaged Japanese surface forces while simultaneously defending against aircraft. Though the Duncan ultimately sank after absorbing tremendous damage, her gun crews transitioned seamlessly between surface and air targets throughout the battle, demonstrating the versatility that would become the hallmark of American destroyer actions. During the naval battles around Guadalcanal, Japanese sailors began to notice a disturbing pattern. When their ships and American vessels engaged at night, Japanese fire control often had the initial advantage. But when Japanese aircraft entered the battle, or when American planes appeared, the American ships barely broke stride. Their main guns would swing skyward, engage the aerial threat, and then drop back to continue the surface action, all without missing a beat. By contrast, Japanese ships had to choose: either continue the surface engagement with their main battery, or redirect their separate anti-aircraft guns to deal with planes. They couldn't do both effectively with the same weapons system, creating critical moments of vulnerability. After one particularly devastating night action, a Japanese officer captured the dilemma in his battle report. The American destroyers seemed to be everywhere at once. Their guns fired at our ships, then at our aircraft, then back at our ships with barely a pause. We were forced to choose between defending against their ships or their planes. They faced no such choice. The technical specifications told the story. The American 5-inch, 38, could elevate to 85 degrees for engaging aircraft directly overhead. The Japanese Type 89 could only elevate to 55 degrees, leaving a significant blind spot above the ship where aircraft could attack with impunity. More importantly, the American gun's mount was power-driven, allowing it to shift from surface to air targets in seconds. The Type 89, with its manually operated elevation, required exhausting physical effort and precious time to redirect. In one famous engagement off Vella La Vella in August 1943, the destroyer USS Chevalier engaged 3 Japanese destroyers while simultaneously fighting off waves of attacking aircraft. Her gun director shifted seamlessly between surface and air targets, coordinating the 5-inch 38 batteries with deadly efficiency. Japanese survivors later reported their astonishment at how quickly the American guns seemed to alternate between threats. It was as if they had twice as many guns as actually appeared on their decks, one Japanese officer noted in his report. When our planes attacked, their guns rose to meet them. When they had driven off the aircraft, the guns immediately returned to punish our ships. There was no respite, no moment of vulnerability we could exploit. The Fletcher-class destroyers, with their versatile 5-inch 38 guns, became the workhorses of the Pacific Fleet. By late 1943, dozens were in service, forming the backbone of American destroyer squadrons. Their dual-purpose main battery meant they could perform any mission screening for carriers, shore bombardment, anti-submarine patrol, or fleet defense with equal capability. Meanwhile, Japanese naval architects scrambled to adapt. They recognized the critical flaw in their weapons philosophy, but wartime production constraints made it nearly impossible to implement major design changes. Some later Japanese destroyers featured improved anti-aircraft capabilities, but none achieved the elegant versatility of the American dual-purpose system. The human element couldn't be overlooked either. American gun crews trained for both surface and air engagements with the same weapon, developing a versatility their Japanese counterparts lacked. Japanese ships maintained separate crews for anti-ship and anti-aircraft weapons, effectively reducing their available manpower and creating coordination challenges. Captain Robert Dennison, commanding the destroyer USS Nicholas during the Battle of Empress Augusta Bay, later described watching his gun crews in action. They moved like a single organism, shifting from surface targets to air threats without missing a beat. Their training had made the dual-purpose nature of the weapon second nature. There was no hesitation, no confusion about roles, just seamless transition as the threat environment changed. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. The technical innovation of the 5-inch 38 extended beyond its dual-purpose capability. Its semi-automatic breech mechanism allowed a well-trained crew to achieve a firing rate of 15 to 20 rounds per minute, far outpacing the 5 to 8 rounds of the Japanese Type 89. In extended engagements, this rate of fire created an overwhelming volume that Japanese ships struggled to match. Lieutenant William Keith, a gunnery officer aboard the USS Fletcher during the Battle of Kure Gulf, recalled, "We could put 3 to 4 rounds in the air before the Japanese could respond with a single shot from their main battery. Even when their first salvo was on target, we'd already shifted position and launched a half-dozen more shells their way. The psychological impact was tremendous. They were constantly reacting, never setting the tempo." The dual-purpose innovation reflected a fundamental difference in design philosophy. Japanese naval engineers had pursued specialized perfection weapons that excelled at a single role. American designers embraced versatile adequacy weapons that performed multiple roles effectively, even if they weren't optimized for any single task. In practice, this versatility proved superior. As Admiral Chester Nimitz later observed, in naval warfare, the ability to adapt quickly to changing threats often matters more than having the perfect weapon for any single scenario. Our dual-purpose guns gave our destroyers that adaptability. By early 1944, Japanese naval officers had developed a healthy respect and fear for the American Fletcher-class destroyers and their versatile main batteries. What had once been dismissed as an engineering compromise was now recognized as a decisive advantage. Vice Admiral Matome Ugaki wrote in his diary after losing ships at the Battle of the Philippine Sea, "The American destroyers seem to be everywhere, their guns constantly firing. When our dive bombers attack their carriers, the destroyers' guns swing skyward with impossible speed. When our surface ships approach, those same guns level out to meet us with devastating accuracy. They have effectively doubled their firepower through this dual-purpose design." Perhaps the ultimate vindication came after the war, when Japanese naval architects were interviewed by American intelligence officers. Asked about the weapons they most respected, many cited the 5-inch 38 dual-purpose gun. "We had better torpedoes, and in some cases superior optical rangefinders," admitted former designer Chikamaza Kondo, "but your dual-purpose main battery gave your ships a versatility ours could never match. You could fight in any conditions against any threat without compromising your ship's capabilities. It was a brilliant concept we should have pursued ourselves." The lesson wasn't lost on post-war naval designers worldwide. Nearly every major navy eventually adopted dual-purpose gun systems for their surface combatants. What had begun as an American innovation became a global standard, the recognition that modern naval warfare required weapons that could adapt as quickly as the threats they faced. For the sailors who served aboard the Fletcher-class destroyers, the 5-inch 38 guns represented more than just technical innovation. They embodied American industrial and design philosophy. While adversaries pursued specialized perfection, Americans embraced practical versatility, creating weapons that could adapt to the chaos of combat rather than requiring combat to adapt to the weapons. In the end, reflected Admiral Arleigh Burke, who commanded destroyer squadrons equipped with these weapons, a weapon for every scenario. They're won by having good enough weapons for any scenario. Our dual-purpose guns meant our ships were never caught with the wrong weapon at the wrong time. The impact of the Fletcher-class destroyers and their revolutionary 5-inch 38 dual-purpose guns became even more apparent during the massive amphibious operations of 1944 and 1945. As American forces island-hopped across the Pacific, these versatile warships performed multiple roles simultaneously, bombarding shore positions, defending the invasion fleet against air attack, and engaging enemy surface forces that attempted to disrupt the landings. During the invasion of Saipan in June 1944, the destroyer USS Melvin demonstrated the full capabilities of the dual-purpose armament. Within a single 2-hour period, her gun crews shifted from naval gunfire support against Japanese shore positions to anti-aircraft defense against incoming Betty bombers, then to counter-battery fire against Japanese coast defense guns, all without missing a beat. The Japanese defenders, equipped with separate weapons for each type of engagement, couldn't match this operational flexibility. Captain Thomas Graves, commanding the Melvin, later wrote, "Our gun crews moved with practiced precision between wildly different target sets. 1 minute they were dropping shells on enemy trenches 2 miles inland. The next, they were tracking aircraft approaching at 250 miles per hour. The 5-inch, 38's Versatility, allowed us to be 3 different ships at once: shore bombardment platform, anti-aircraft battery, and surface combatant. This operational flexibility proved particularly devastating during the Battle of Leyte Gulf in October 1944, the largest naval battle in history. As Japanese forces attempted a complex, multi-pronged attack on the American invasion fleet, Fletcher-class destroyers, equipped with the dual-purpose guns, served as the fleet's first line of defense in the Surigao Strait portion of the battle. American destroyers executed a textbook torpedo attack against the approaching Japanese force under Admiral Shoji Nishimura. After launching their torpedoes, the destroyers opened fire with their 5-inch 38 guns, pouring shells into the Japanese formation. When Japanese float planes attempted to illuminate the American ships with flares, those same gun mounts immediately elevated to engage the aircraft, driving them off before returning to the surface action. The Japanese ships, by contrast, faced an impossible dilemma. Their Type 89 guns were excellent against surface targets, but couldn't effectively engage the spotting aircraft. Their dedicated anti-aircraft guns could target the planes, but contributed nothing to the surface engagement. This division of firepower created critical vulnerabilities that American forces ruthlessly exploited. Lieutenant Commander Henry Plage of the destroyer USS Reme observed the battle from his ship's bridge. The Japanese appeared to be fighting 2 separate battles with 2 separate weapon systems, while we fought a single integrated action. When their spotting planes approached, half their firepower stood idle. When our destroyers closed in, their anti-aircraft batteries contributed nothing to their defense. It was as if they were fighting with one hand tied behind their back. The battle off Samar, another phase of Leyte Gulf, further demonstrated the dual-purpose gun's value. When Admiral Kurita's powerful surface force of battleships and cruisers surprised a group of American escort carriers protected only by Fletcher-class destroyers, the Americans faced overwhelming odds. The Japanese ships outgunned them by an order of magnitude, with the Type 89 guns outranging the American weapons. Yet the dual-purpose capability proved decisive even in this desperate situation. As Japanese cruisers and battleships pounded the American formation with their main batteries, Japanese spotting aircraft attempted to coordinate the same attack. The Fletcher-class destroyers engaged both threats simultaneously, their 5-inch 38 guns shifting between surface and air targets as the situation demanded. Commander Ernest Evans of the USS Johnston, directing his ship in a suicidal charge against the Japanese formation, utilized the flexibility of his main battery to maximum effect. The Johnston's guns engaged Japanese cruisers with rapid fire, then swung skyward to drive off spotting aircraft, disrupting Japanese fire control efforts. Though the Johnston and several other American ships were ultimately sunk, their integrated defense inflicted critical damage on the Japanese force and contributed to Kurita's fateful decision to withdraw. A Japanese officer aboard the cruiser Tone later described the encounter. The American destroyers fought like demons, their guns constantly in motion. They would fire a spread of shells at our cruisers, then their mounts would suddenly point to the sky to chase away our spotters. It was impossible to predict where their fire would come from next. Though we had superior firepower, their flexibility made them extraordinarily difficult to defeat decisively. By early 1945, the dual-purpose capability had proven so valuable that the U.S. Navy modified its fire control procedures to take full advantage of it. The Fletcher-class destroyers developed coordinated defense plans, where some ships would maintain surface fire, while others provided air defense, then seamlessly swap roles as threats evolved. This dynamic defense was impossible for Japanese forces to replicate with their specialized weapons systems. During the Okinawa campaign, when Japanese kamikaze attacks reached their peak, the dual-purpose philosophy paid its greatest dividends. American destroyer screens used their 5-inch 38 guns to create layered defensive barriers against incoming aircraft, while simultaneously engaging Japanese shore batteries and remaining alert for surface threats. The destroyer USS Leyte, stationed on radar picket duty north of Okinawa on the 16th of April 1945, endured one of the most intensive kamikaze attacks of the war. Over a period of 80 minutes, the ship was attacked by 22 aircraft. Her 5-inch 38 gun mounts engaged target after target, the power-driven systems allowing her gunners to track and engage the rapidly maneuvering aircraft. Despite being hit by multiple bombs and kamikaze crashes, the Leyte's gun crews maintained their fire until the attack ended, shooting down 8 aircraft. Fire Controlman First Class Walter Decker, who survived the Leyte's ordeal, later described the action. Our gun mounts swung like they were alive, tracking targets across the sky faster than seemed possible. When one aircraft went down, the director immediately acquired the next threat. The Japanese seemed to expect periods of vulnerability between engagements, but the power drives and dual-purpose design meant there were none. We engaged each target as quickly as it appeared. The lessons of the dual-purpose innovation extended beyond the guns themselves. The philosophy represented a fundamentally different approach to warfare, one that valued adaptability over specialization, versatility over optimization for a single scenario. Admiral Raymond Spruance, commander of the Fifth Fleet, noted in a 1945 report, "The dual-purpose main battery exemplifies the American approach to naval warfare. Rather than optimizing for the scenario we expect, we've created systems that can adapt to the scenarios we encounter." This philosophy has served us well throughout the Pacific campaign, allowing our forces to respond effectively to the constantly shifting threats of modern naval combat. Japanese naval leaders eventually recognized this philosophical difference and its implications for their defeat. Vice Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa, commander of Japanese carrier forces at the Battle of the Philippine Sea, reflected after the war, "We designed our ships and weapons for the decisive battle we imagined would occur. The Americans designed theirs for the 1,000 unpredictable engagements that actually occurred. Their dual-purpose systems gave them operational flexibility we could never match with our specialized approach." The human factor amplified the technical advantage. American sailors trained extensively in rapid transitions between surface and air engagements, developing an integrated understanding of naval combat that their Japanese counterparts lacked. Japan's naval tradition, with its rigid specialization, meant gunners trained exclusively for either anti-ship or anti-aircraft roles, never developing the holistic combat perspective that American dual-purpose crews acquired. Chief Gunners Mate Raymond Holt of the USS Nicholas explained the difference. "On Japanese ships, you were either a surface gunner or an anti-aircraft gunner. On our ships, you were simply a gunner, ready to engage any target that threatened your ship." This created a situational awareness and adaptability that gave us a tremendous advantage in the chaos of naval combat. The dual-purpose innovation had implications beyond the Pacific theater. In the Atlantic, Fletcher-class destroyers on convoy duty used their versatile main batteries to engage both surfaced U-boats and the German aircraft that sometimes coordinated with them. In the Mediterranean, they provided both shore bombardment for landings and air defense against Luftwaffe attacks. The versatility that proved so valuable against Japan served equally well against other Axis powers. By the final months of the war, the Japanese had begun developing their own dual-purpose systems, but too late to affect the outcome. The Type 98 10 cm gun, developed as Japan's answer to the 5-inch 38, entered limited service in 1945, but never reached widespread deployment before Japan's surrender. A captured Japanese naval engineering document from July 1945 revealed the belated recognition of the dual-purpose concept's value. American dual-purpose naval gunnery has proven decisively superior to our specialized approach. Future Japanese warship design must incorporate similar versatility, or we will continue to face an insurmountable disadvantage in naval engagements. The legacy of the 5-inch 38 dual-purpose gun extended far beyond World War II. Its success established the dual-purpose concept as a cornerstone of naval gunnery worldwide. The gun itself remained in U.S. Navy service until the 1,992nd, an extraordinary half-century career that spanned conflicts from World War II through Vietnam and beyond. Modern naval guns, like the 5-inch, 54 caliber Mark 45 that eventually replaced it, maintain the dual-purpose philosophy. Even as missiles have largely supplanted guns as ships' primary armament, the concept of multi-role weapons systems permeates every aspect of naval design. Today's Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, spiritual descendants of the Fletchers, feature vertical launch systems that can fire anti-air, anti-ship, or land attack missiles from the same cells, the ultimate expression of the dual-purpose concept. Commander Alexander Carson, a naval historian at the USC Naval War College, summarized the innovation's significance. The 5-inch, 38 dual-purpose gun wasn't just a weapon, it was a philosophy made metal. It embodied the American approach to warfare, practical, adaptable, and prioritizing versatility over theoretical perfection. Its success against Japan's specialized approach offers enduring lessons about the value of flexible capabilities in unpredictable conflicts. For the sailors who served aboard Fletcher-class destroyers, the dual-purpose guns represented more than technical specifications. They embodied confidence in American engineering and industrial might. Each time a gun mount swung seamlessly from surface target to aerial threat, it reaffirmed their technological edge over an enemy that had once been considered superior in naval warfare. The Japanese started the war believing their specialized naval technology was superior to our compromises, reflected Rear Admiral Harold Hall, who commanded a destroyer squadron in the Solomon Islands campaign. By 1944, they knew better. Our compromise had proven superior precisely because naval combat rarely follows the scenarios you expect. Adaptability trumps specialization when the situation constantly changes, a lesson as relevant today as it was in the Pacific. The psychological impact on Japanese forces shouldn't be underestimated. After repeated encounters with Fletcher-class destroyers, Japanese sailors developed a respect bordering on superstition for these versatile warships. The seemingly magical ability of American destroyers to engage multiple threat types simultaneously created a sense that they were fighting an opponent with supernatural capabilities. Lieutenant Toshio Yoshida, a survivor from the destroyer Uranami sunk during the naval battle of Guadalcanal, captured this sentiment in his post-war memoir. The American destroyers seemed to possess an unnatural awareness. Their guns would be firing at our ships, then suddenly swing skyward to engage aircraft we hadn't even spotted yet, then return to the surface action without missing a salvo. It created the disturbing impression that we were fighting an enemy that could see in all directions at once. This psychological advantage compounded the technical one. Japanese forces began to hesitate when facing Fletcher-class destroyers, allowing American vessels to seize the initiative. The dual-purpose capability created an aura of invincibility that affected Japanese tactical decisions throughout the later phases of the Pacific War. The innovation also highlighted a fundamental contrast in industrial philosophy. Japan's emphasis on craftsmanship and specialized perfection produced weapons of extraordinary quality but limited quantity and versatility. America's focus on standardization and multi-purpose functionality created weapons that could be mass-produced while maintaining the flexibility to meet diverse combat requirements. By war's end, nearly 175 Fletcher-class destroyers had been commissioned, an astonishing production achievement that overwhelmed Japan's capacity to replace naval losses. The dual-purpose main battery, with its standardized components and ammunition, significantly contributed to this production efficiency. Admiral Ernest King, Chief of Naval Operations, highlighted this aspect in a 1945 address to naval contractors. Our dual-purpose philosophy hasn't just given us tactical advantages, it's given us industrial ones. Building one type of gun mount instead of two, manufacturing one type of ammunition instead of separate anti-ship and anti-aircraft rounds, training one type of gun crew instead of specialists. These efficiencies have allowed us to outproduce our adversary while maintaining superior capability. This industrial advantage proved as decisive as the tactical one. As the war progressed, American shipyards produced new Fletcher-class destroyers faster than Japan could sink them. By contrast, each Japanese naval loss represented irreplaceable capability. The mathematical inevitability of America's production advantage, embodied in innovations like the dual-purpose gun system, made Japan's defeat certain long before the final battles were fought. The human stories behind the innovation illustrated American ingenuity at its finest. The development of the 5-inch 38 dual-purpose gun hadn't been the work of a single genius, but the collaborative effort of naval officers, engineers, industrialists, and the sailors who provided feedback from combat experience. Lieutenant Commander Wallace Betts, who served on the Bureau of Ordnance team that refined the weapon during the 1,930 seconds, described the process. "We didn't set out to create the perfect anti-ship gun or the perfect anti-aircraft gun. We recognized that future naval combat would require both capabilities, often simultaneously, and that ships had limited space and weight available." The dual-purpose concept emerged from these practical constraints. It was American pragmatism in its purest form, solving the problem we actually faced rather than the one we wished we faced. This pragmatic approach characterized America's entire war effort. While adversaries often pursued theoretical perfection or adhered to rigid doctrines, American forces adapted continuously based on battlefield realities. The dual-purpose gun exemplified this adaptability, acknowledging that naval combat had become three-dimensional and developing systems to address this complexity. After the war, Japanese naval architect Keiji Fukuda paid perhaps the ultimate compliment to the innovation. The American 5-inch 38 dual-purpose gun wasn't just a superior weapon, it represented a superior understanding of modern naval warfare. While we remained fixated on the classic surface duel, they recognized that ships must be prepared to fight in all dimensions simultaneously. Their guns could engage any target in any domain, while ours remained constrained by our outdated conception of naval combat. The lesson resonates beyond military technology. Organizations of all kinds face the choice between specialized excellence and versatile capability, between optimizing for expected scenarios and maintaining adaptability for unexpected ones. The success of the dual-purpose concept in the Pacific War suggests that in rapidly changing environments, versatility often provides the greater advantage. For today's military planners, the legacy of the 5-inch 38 dual-purpose gun offers valuable insights. As warfare continues to evolve across multiple domains, physical and virtual, air and space, sea and land, the ability to adapt quickly to emerging threats remains as crucial as it was in 1942. Weapons and systems that can perform effectively across these domains, rather than excelling in just one, may prove decisive in future conflicts. The lesson of the dual-purpose gun isn't about naval artillery, noted General Mark Holloway, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, in a 2020 address at the Naval War College. It's about the enduring value of adaptable capabilities in unpredictable environments. Whether we're discussing hypersonic missiles or cyber defenses, the question remains the same. Are we creating systems that can adapt to the scenarios we actually encounter, or are we optimizing for the scenarios we expect to encounter? The sailors who manned those dual-purpose guns understood this truth intuitively. They knew their versatile weapons gave them options. Their enemies lacked the ability to respond effectively to whatever threats emerged from the chaos of combat. This confidence in their equipment translated into confidence in battle, allowing American destroyers to take on opponents of superior size and firepower. Commander David Mason of the USS Haywood L. Edwards captured this sentiment in a letter to his family after surviving the brutal naval battle of Vela Gulf. "Our guns may not be the biggest in the fleet, but they're certainly the most adaptable. When Japanese planes appear overhead, we're an anti-aircraft cruiser. When enemy destroyers emerge from the darkness, we're a surface combatant. When Marines need support ashore, we're a bombardment vessel. This versatility gives us a freedom of action our enemies can't match, and in war, freedom of action often makes the difference between victory and defeat." The dual-purpose innovation reminds us that sometimes the most effective solution isn't the most specialized or technically perfect, but the one that offers the greatest adaptability to changing circumstances. In the fluid environment of the Pacific War, the ability of Fletcher-class destroyers to rapidly transition between different combat roles proved more valuable than superior performance in any single role. This lesson that adaptability often trumps specialization in dynamic environments remains as relevant today as it was when the first 5-inch 38 guns began firing in the Solomon Islands. It's a testament to American ingenuity and pragmatism, and a reminder that the most effective innovations often emerge not from pursuing perfection in ideal conditions, but from acknowledging the complex, messy reality of the challenges we actually face. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.